AIA to order. Approval of the meeting minutes on February 18th, 2020. Everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes?
And every word.
Every word, did you? Thank you. All 16 pages.
The motion.
Motion second.
Second.
Any discussion? Any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Application and the status of the Cortec application. I think after last meeting, we're supposed to have some new numbers, and are they forthcoming?
They're not gonna be here, not gonna be in his hands until at least the next couple days. So we'll be back to you in April or May.
For a May public hearing?
Yes. He's just not been able to get the facts that he needed as quickly as he could.
Okay. And you don't know if there's significant changes from the initial?
Doesn't sound like they're significant, it just doesn't have the corresponding things that he feel comfortable with at this point.
He was feeling March 12th was the numbers, the quickest that he could have accurate numbers for the application, and unfortunately, it just didn't meet with the timeline.
Yeah,
So-
it doesn't help us out.
Right.
And if we could get the,
Absolutely.
if we can get the numbers on a timely basis for our board to kind of look at, so that we have those questions for
Oh, sure.
Cortec and.
As soon as we have them, we'll go ahead and get another updated version out.
Send it out to us?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah, that won't be a problem.
so we're looking at a May public hearing.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question there, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Does he understand this?
He-
It
his
didn't seem
email
like it
late
last night.
Yeah, late
We took
last
care of
night,
it.
yep.
He
was
understands
set
it.
one at 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did get that email at 10:30 last night, and I was a little bit surprised. But, so and it's only fair to our board that we have enough
Absolutely.
time to kind of look at those numbers.
We appreciate that.
Thank you. The CEO report, survey of companies. Scott?
We've, the surveys of, most everything is in. The only outstanding thing we're waiting for is the Malta ambulance, is that right?
Malta Ambulance is the only of the not-for-profits that we had bond
It's a-
financing for, that we haven't received that, the year-end survey.
That also affects our completion of our audited financials to be disclosed.
Right, right.
So that's the only thing left to wrap up our audit too.
And Danforth, we got, where it's in the mail.
Well,
Right.
the email we got says
Yeah,
it's in the mail.
It's in the mail, so we're getting close, so we'll be able to start our Paris reporting and all that with our annual report, the investment report, procurement report, and all that stuff with the work I do with Jeff.
And the date on that, when's the filing date?
The end of the month, right?
March.
March 31st.
March
March
31st,
31st.
yep, yep.
And,
Same as normal.
okay, and you're able to
Yeah, Jeff and
Meet
I
that-
spoke this morning, we should, yep,
meet
yep,
that deadline?
yep,
Yeah.
yep. So that's done. The pilot distributions and so forth, I'll let Mike speak to that.
The chart that you received in the email, and in your mailing, shows the companies that were billed as far as, our pilots. I just take a couple minutes to go down through them. I listed these by municipality alphabetically because it helps us who can't organize things, I guess, so it's the easiest thing, looking at that alphabetically by town, going down from Cortec at the top. Now this again, Cortec, this is their first project, not the one that they're considering now, nor the one that we saw, say, 2 years ago. And the town of Ballston is the only one of the towns that we have in the county right now that we have as a project where there is no town tax. Wilton is the other town that has no town tax, but we no longer have any active projects in Wilton, except for Ace Hardware, very, very last one listed. And Ace Hardware, for the first 5 years, there is no tax on the improved value of the property, which is the addition. And then we've got, we hit a number of different projects in the towns town of Half Moon. Then, as Scott alluded to, that Danforth is the only one you can see that's highlighted in yellow where that payment has not come in yet. I should note that our bills went out on January 30th, or the date of those, so payment would have been February 30th, which in effect really is March 1st. So
Would you
he's,
say February what? March 30th?
January 30th.
Oh, I think you said February.
He's leaping around.
Wow.
you know.
No, I said it would have
A
been
couple
30
extra days in the February.
It's just
No,
on the calendar.
30 days would
It's
have
a
been.
leap.
Forget it.
Double leaper.
It's a leap over year.
Yes.
Okay.
February 30th would have been the due date, but it's, all right? But there is, I did say it and I wanted to clear it up. There is no February 30th, so it becomes March 1st.
I missed-
All right, we can erase that from tape later. As we go through, Malta, Malta, this is, it's odd, if you look at this, and I've always gotta call the assessor every year when we do school pilot bills and local pilot bills. If you look in that column in the middle, where it says town and city portion, you'll see the 3 projects in the town of Malta, and they were sent their payment yesterday, comes to a whopping $15.98 for town tax in Malta. Malta has set up their tax structure so that they funnel their revenues over to their county tax bill. So there's not much of a town tax with them. Then you come to a new one, Karma Properties is the one in Northumberland, which was Stonebridge. And that's in its 3rd year. It's the only one we have for Northumberland, and I can't spell Northumberland now that I look at that. Saratoga Springs, we have 5 projects and came to a total of $23,000, which I brought to the finance department yesterday. UPH has no tax on it on the project during the term of its 10-year pilot. And then we come to the last one for Saratoga Springs is an SKS project, which is Twin Brook. That's the water bottle project out towards Grandy Industrial Park on Geyser Road. Land Development's the only one we have in Waterford, and that's in its 3rd year. So you see down below the distributions. A lot of that stuff the stuff on the bottom is sort of meaningless, or it would be for you to look at, because it deals, when did I make a deposit, when did I get that letter drafted, when did I send the payment. That's for my own use for the most part. So those are the projects up above that we have. With our school pilots coming in September, we will be adding on 3 projects that close in 2019. So that will be added to the list. There is nobody here that is dropping off of our list that we would need reconveyance in March for. Anybody have any questions on those?
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
So then, moving on, the conflict of interest in the board of directors evaluation. Actually, there's a staff component of that too. So Mike and I, Jeff, Mike Toohey, we have to sign these. I've got them here. I've got copies. So before we leave today, we'll all sign them, and and Kevin, I need yours as well. If you brought it with you, or I got another copy, you can sign it here. So that'll take care of that. I did go.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
And I did relay this to Kevin's secretary. He's only in a position out of the 2 forms that we had. He can sign the conflict of interest. There's not much at this point. This is his 2nd meeting.
Understood,
That
yeah.
he can put the board evaluation.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. Last meeting, we talked about our fee for this board, and I did some research and looked around. Warren and Washington County was $500, Schenectady County was $1,000, Mechanicville was $500, Albany County was $1,500, Fulton County was $1,000, and a bunch of others. The average is $1,000, so my recommendation is $1,000. We're at $250 now. That goes to speak about, what we discussed last meeting as far as potential revenue for council payments and things like that. So that's my recommendation. The board can do whatever they'd like to do with that.
Sounds reasonable to me.
in line with the other towns, essentially.
Yeah, there's some smaller counties than us that are more expensive by a long shot, so I think that brings us up to where we should be.
Yeah, it protects us from applications that don't fully go through the process.
Exactly.
Concur.
The number,
1,000.
1,000. Okay. Okay, motion to accept that, change the application fee?
I'll second it.
Second, and further discussion. Vote, please.
Okay, and a roll call vote for resolution 1459 and $1,000 fee for IDA applications. How do you vote, Mr. Tallison?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Mooney?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Lynch?
Yes.
And Chairman Sutton.
Yes.
The motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Scott.
Yep. Couple other things here, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
There is a line item here for discussion about CEG, and that fee, I don't know if you wanna go.
One other thing,
Go
Scott,
ahead.
you might want to decide when we change the fee, when it's effective.
That's a
So,
good point, Mike.
Anything that's currently pending would already go to the 250, right?
Yeah, they've already paid.
Right.
Well, we only have one application pending right now.
Are you
It's
saying
Cortec.
Cortec?
That's just
Yeah.
Cortec.
Did he give
So-
you the check, Mike? Did he send it to you?
At the last meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
She thought so, but I just wanted to check, make sure.
Wait, you can't back charge.
No,
No,
But
I think
not
what
waiting
you-
for next
We go
year.
forward.
Snap the line now, and from anybody from here on.
I've
yeah.
got two projects I would talk about today with the subcommittee.
Correct.
Those two were talked about at 250, so whatever you decide, if I have to do that, I'll make sure we tell them.
I think we will have a start date, any application that comes in, after April 1st.
Okay. Fine.
I think that,
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
That makes
we
sense.
wanted to-
Yeah. So then I'm back to, there was Pat Green brought up a request for a discussion about the Center for Economic Growth and the membership fee there in light of what was discussed at the last meeting. We could discuss that now, or we can do it in other business. It's totally up to you.
We're gonna hold off.
What's that, you're gonna hold off?
Yeah.
Okay. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, CFO report.
Okay, for our report for February, pretty straightforward, all the bank accounts are reconciled. No significant payables, other than we did exercise the contract, or sign the contract with Camoin Associates to, do the rail spur study and the railroad activity possibilities up in the town of Moreau. So that's in our payables. On the profit and loss, temporarily, I include the pilot payments that we've collected that we had not paid out by the end of February as a liability, but that will zero out once the town and county pilot payments are all received, and will all be paid out. So that'll be a zero at the end of, very soon, actually. And we received a public hearing transcript, but we'll have a bill that will coincide with that. Payables of Camoin Associates is now on our list of payables, and the project, their study has started. That's pretty much it for a pretty quiet couple of months here on the financial side. I also handed out the draft audited financial statements. There's no adjustments from my year-end report in December. We have a clean opinion. The only thing we're waiting on is to receive the information from Malta Ambulance regarding their bond balances. As always, they always ask me about the rail spur and the valuation of that, but, you know, they're comfortable with the cost we're carrying at, so it's pretty straightforward with the audit, but we haven't completed it yet because of Malta Ambulance is not reporting to us yet, so we'll get that nailed down, so that we can actually go on and then do our parish reporting as well.
Right, so is that gonna hold up the Paris report if we don't accept this audit?
It didn't last year, we had the same
You just
thing.
put it in the way it was.
Well, we finally got the information from, 'em, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So we're just arm wrestling with them to get
I guess,
it
do you
done.
want to approve the financials, assuming that the only item left is, and we'll get that balance and the activity from their bonds?
Is there any reason, did they give a reason why they're not,
No,
They never do.
they never did?
Year after year after year after year after year, they never submit. They are it's a private, not-for-profit ambulance.
Right.
All right, and they have their bonding, and each year, they change a new officers, so there's no contacts. So I sent them another one in the mail, and I drove over to their ambulance squad and put one in their outside mailbox,
Okay.
and added a note that the next phone call I make will be to the bondholder.
I think we should accept it.
Except that it's,
yeah, this will end in 2023. The beginning balance of the year was 609,000 is left at the beginning of 19, so it's coming to an end, thankfully. But
you
we'll
plug in those numbers?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send out a note to everybody that we got it, and this is the information to kind of close the loop.
So we'll need a motion then to accept the financials, the year-end financials?
Yes,
I'll make a motion to accept the December 31st, 2019 audited financials.
Second?
Consent.
Second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
it says here that I'm reporting on Lemery Chrysler invoices. The only question really there is if, to check with Jim if there's any more invoices that, for projects that did not go through last year. It's not a big deal. But I'll follow up with him just to see if there's anything else,
Okay.
that we might owe him for. So, that's it.
Any questions of Jeff? Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Project updates, SCDC, Dennis.
We have a couple projects, as I mentioned today, will be bringing before the subcommittee. We also have the large retention project that we've been working on for quite a few months, that hopefully will be brought to this agency in April. That's a project that I'd rather not speak at the name live, but we are very positive how that's going forward, and we believe to see that very soon. The other things that we'll continue to see are we got another lead for a rail spur. The issues that these people have with regard to rail services daily, which even limits it even more to the Grandy Industrial Park, to existing spurs that exist or that are in place. But we have hopes that we can get some spurs along the line down in Half Moon along the CP rail line. We're also working on that. Other than that, phone keeps ringing, and there's still projects out there. Warehouses are heating up again that time of year. If you noticed in the paper today, Amazon's talking about putting one out in Amsterdam, exit 27. That site is from Win Stanley, a company out of Connecticut, Massachusetts developer. We've seen them before, and they're looking at a lot of different things, as well as some of the other ones that we've worked with in the past.
Are they looking in Saratoga County?
Win Stanley is not, but other ones are, yes.
Others
They
are.
Yep. So we've got a couple projects that we've already had discussions. We're waiting for them to give us the specs that we're looking for.
Do you have any sense of how big that Amazon project is? In terms
Yeah,
of
it's about 1
jobs?
million square feet out there.
How many?
Million,
Million?
just like the one in Rensselaer. It's a local delivery piece.
Last mile?
No, not the
Okay.
last mile, but there's two ways they look at it. Last mile, local delivery. Local delivery is within so many miles, and last mile is that one that you have the van pick up stuff and things of that nature. So it's a step above that, which is still the ones we're trying to figure out exactly how they're doing everything. But Amazon's still working through those things. We know that there's two large Amazon projects, one in Buffalo, one in Syracuse, that are over 3.5 million square feet, 5 floors. It's quite large distribution centers. That's unusual for distribution ton of, building code, variances needed for those buildings. They have to up their fire protection and things of that nature to be able to get them passed, and that's what, they're going through that process right now to see how that works in the state of New York. There hasn't been one of these built yet, so those are going on. We don't expect to see one of that size in this area, in our immediate region, just because we're sort of on the periphery. It could be one in the Hudson Valley, and Syracuse would probably be the closest. Probably the population will work well for that, but things change occasionally.
Okay. Now, we did, this past month, we did sign the contract with Camoin to do the study on the rail spur. I think Jeff alluded to, it's $14,800 some odd dollars. And you do have a conference call coming up on Friday. Okay.
In the interim, Michael and I have met with AGFT, so we kind of pieced together where the last CHA study left off in 2007, complemented by what Camoin will provide in the economic feasibility report. I've reached out to Ray Hessinger at DOT to just for some guidance as far as is there any, updating on the CHA as far as engineering and cost and those things he'd like to see as we just define this role for the DOT sector, and that's determining if the crossing at 197 is going to be something they can work through or an absolute hurdle and kind of get ahead of it. He's looking at that. Aaron said based on Ray's feedback, he would be willing to work through his agency to consider it through committee to use some of that CHA retainer they have currently to update that, so we can kind of, use both Camoin and that update to provide a real solid look at what that means and bring it back to you folks upon completion. But I'll keep you updated as we progress. We're keeping everybody, it's very inclusive. And again, we're fact finding. I have a meeting with the village mayor tomorrow at 2 p.m. just to bring him up to speed on things, see what his feeling is as far as looking at that spur that goes up to Essity. Right now, we're focusing on the Monroe Industrial Park South, but we thought, we'll just reach out, we'll see what his thoughts are. If it's something he wants to include, we can certainly loop that in on phase 2.
Is Todd helping you out with that?
Yes.
Supervisor Todd? And then the timetable for Camoin, you think is still about the 3-month?
Yeah, we're trying to shave some time off on that, so I think the kickoff meeting, keeping all of the agencies involved with expectations and what they're going to need, along with the Camoin team, I think will help us, and we'll get that taken care of.
Any questions?
Right.
Okay, thanks, Tori.
One of the things that you ought to talk to whoever you're talking to about is the reception that the reinstitution of a rail system will have with neighbors in proximity to that rail. That's been vacant for so long. I bet you none of the people who now reside in close proximity have any knowledge that there really was a train track there, that was an active train track. And that's going to have a big input.
We
want to get ahead of that.
We met with the town board member who actually backs up to the rail, Gina Leclerc. Very, very, very good conversation. She agrees that there are people that don't remember what's what.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the discontinued use instead of abandoned.
Yeah.
Which they have certain rights for crossing.
Yeah.
But she was very forthcoming with her concerns, and others what could be. The other thing is, people, when they think of a rail line, they don't understand it's not daily. It's not probably going to be daily at this point, and it's not going to go above 5 to 10 miles an hour because it's a spur. And when you start having these conversations, it's good to hear what their fears are naturally. And Gina can actually remember the last time the rail line ran to Chase Bay, and it was probably sometimes in the early 70s? I think it was early 70s, 71, 72, wasn't it? Something like that. So she can actually remember that. And so she said, it just, you're right. Not a lot of people have a clue.
And Michael, to that very point, that's why we really, as we looked at that, Monroe South, albeit there are neighbors backing up, that made perfect sense to look at this with the other spur going north being, I don't know, and that's a whole different demographic and density, I think, as we look up to Essity.
Right.
So it may be something that they want to see what the price is if if a company ever came to them, any company within the village, and said, I really need rail to stay here, at least Harry would have that information. But he may say, you know, the ends does not justify the means for us, and if we have it down the road a little bit going south, that would make better sense to keep that. So thank you for that info, we'll absolutely.
Well, also, just jumping on that, if it looks like this is actually gonna happen, the only way, the best way to approach the neighbors is reach out to them early and give them all the reasons
Yeah.
why it's not so negative.
Yeah.
Otherwise if the neighbors just,
Nightmare.
you know, and then, you know, politicians, except the cabinet, do stuff.
Yeah, the Supervisor Kuzniers has been very forthcoming. We've spoken to the majority of the board members, getting their feedback, what their questions have been, so it's been very positive. There's been an article in the paper from this meeting, you know, last time because it was on the agenda. Post-Star has asked for questions as well, so at this point, the information's getting out there.
And we've been very, very clear that this is simply a study. This is simply just obtaining,
But
compiling
Tom's
information.
point is correct. If you don't get out in front of this thing, it becomes a Saratoga Hospital building, a medical office building thing, and you have an entire quadrant of the community who are gaining information that may not be correct information, and there's no response to that. So,
Although I think-
I live these situations, and
I
they
think
can
the
get
town
out of hand
supervisor
fast.
though, and the town board, that's their responsibility.
Yeah.
It's really
No,
not.
it's not
It's
ours.
not ours.
It's
Yeah.
not, I mean, they know that, I'm sure that
Yeah.
they're.
But they have been very, very.
Yeah, I mean,
very
they
easy to
spoke
work
to
with.
us about that when that was in committee, and we're confident that they're gonna address that right up front.
But we did receive a resolution from the town
Yeah.
that was unanimous and that the study was being done, so it is in public
Yeah.
light right now.
It also eliminates us putting Mike Valentine's life at risk anymore.
Well, the other thing, it might be 5 miles an hour, but if it's at 2 o'clock in the morning,
Well, that's the thing.
that's the other problem
That's
that you
right.
may have.
That's
So,
right.
okay. Anything else, Dennis? Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Status of projects, assignments, terminations, upcoming closings, and reconveyances.
All right, as I mentioned at the last meeting, and I just mentioned as went over the pilots, we don't have any projects terminating as far as their pilot abatement period. We have no reconveyances. The only thing is, we have the projects for 2019. We had 3 that closed in 2019, being Aerosmith, M Grove, and SMP Group in Waterford. So we have 2 Saratoga Springs projects and 1 in Waterford. The rest of these items underneath here follow coming out of those closings. It's just things we have to do here. Closing letters we have already out, except I think M Grove didn't get their second closing letter. Sales tax reporting reminder, each company is required at the end of February to submit to Tax and Finance a form called ST 340. And in that form, they would tell the sales tax exemptions on construction during that year. It's not a habit of ours to send out reminders to them in the course of the year and in their closing letters. All right, they get that. But what I will wait upon is after we go through March to see what correspondence we would get copied on from Tax and Finance to see who has not submitted that ST 340 yet. And then just give a reminder to those companies. Their construction completion report, I've received one from M Grove, and the other 2 are, I'll send a notice out to them. It was in their last letter on their sales tax letter, so that's just something to follow up. Who did you employ, what firms, where are they located from, what did you purchase, that type of stuff. And then that just brings us back to Scott and I visiting sites and making arrangements on those visits. That's all I have.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other business to come before the board?
I've got just a couple things. I do have a hard copy of Global Foundries report in case anybody needs it, your constituents want to talk about it. And then I want to follow up on the request for the you know, the jobs versus, you know, the reality versus forecasted versus real. That will come out of our Paris reporting, Mike, and I'll, you know, the board will get a copy of that, as you normally do in a spreadsheet form, I'm sure. And the only other thing was, we did get a FOIL request a couple weeks ago, asking the IDA to provide any information on projects with renewable energy and so forth, which we don't have, so we responded in kind legally to answer the FOIL request. But other than that, that's it.
Here's one other thing.
Go ahead.
I just, on your, and in front of you, except for Tom and Kevin didn't sit in the board designated seats up here. Everybody has on their sheet.
They're worried about the coronavirus. There's some costs
Well,
in this.
sitting between Scott and Jeff, I can see that. The, you have on your sheets, you have in front of you for members, you have a sheet I did with, just an update to those projects that we have, or active projects, or we have had them, that came out of, additions, in addition to an existing facility. In other words, either the first time they came to us as an addition, or they came to us as a project, went through one generation, and then had an addition added to that, and came in with another pilot. That's there just for background information updated, and then also same thing with the certificates of insurance, just show you that we're current, up to date, and that gives you a look at March and April as far as what companies have to submit their insurance certificates.
Thank you.
That's it.
Other business? The next meeting will be scheduled for April 14th. I will be out of town that day. If we get the information on a timely basis for a public hearing, we need to know that sooner than later so that we send out the proper notifications. And so we need. Pardon?
Change the date of the meeting?
Well, if
Yeah, I was
agreeable,
gonna ask the same
the
question.
14th, can the 21st, does 21st work for everyone?
Yes, just for me.
You're retired.
Pat, it's 8:30, the 21st, can you handle that?
Yes, that works.
That's the date of that
It
IDA
works.
Academy
8:30 you said, right?
in New Paltz, right?
Lucky you.
Doesn't mean
I agree.
I'd miss it.
8:30 works for me. April 21st, 8:30.
April 21st, and if we get the information on a timely basis, then we will have a public hearing in the town of Ballston.
In May.
No,
You mean if we get it,
I'm sorry, in May. Okay, all right, that's fine.
our
You're,
expectation is that this will be a May meeting.
Oh,
I
okay.
may.
Yeah,
May-
because you
May,
can't,
okay.
you can't have the board
No.
look at it, the application
All right.
between now
The
and have it
application
in
would have to
April.
get, like you're
Right,
saying,
right.
timing this, get to the
I
board
I
before
stand
the
corrected,
April
I
time.
stand corrected, that's fine.
No problem.
May,
So April 21st will be
21st?
the voting to accept that application.
right. So
and-
the next meeting will be on April 21st here in this building.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you.
You're gonna stick around, right?
Yes, and we have a
Okay.
subcommittee